Okay, welcome to another episode of what is this? Oh yeah, KUDEN, KUDEN Radio. I almost said Warriors Whiteboard Wednesday again. Just tells you I'm doing way too much. Maybe. Anyway, all right. So Daishi Hamiller here from Warrior Concepts, and we are here with episode 273. Damn, we're just chucking right along. Anyway, all right. So this one is going to springboard off of last episode. But I'll explain kind of how and why they're not the same thing. They go together really well, but this is a different perspective. All right. So let me just start with a question. Have you ever wondered why some people, I don't know, we'll call it skyrocket, right, in their training, right? They really accelerate, they really excel pretty quickly, right? While others who have been around for years are still stuck, right? Or they feel stuck doing the same moves, maybe with the same mistakes, but there can often be this nagging feeling, right? That done all this stuff, I've learned all this stuff, but is this actually going to work when I need it? Right? We hope that it will, or we pray that it will, right? And sometimes we can even, just have that sense of confidence, right? Kick ass and take names with this stuff, right? But I don't know, back to the original question. Based on years, right? Watching students and being to other people's dojos, watching YouTube videos, those kind of things, right? It's not because one student is smarter or stronger, or even because they show up to class more often, believe it or not, right? I mean, the number of times I went to a formal class compared to training on my own, practice, right? Practice, because I've always been a long distance student. I mean, if that were the case, shit, I'd be a virtual moron. And I guess I am in some people's minds, but hey, I have a show and they don't. Anyway, all right. So no, the real reason is something much more subtle, right? And that is that there is a hidden structure, a hidden framework, a hidden path. There's lots of words that we could use. And it's not that it's hidden because like somebody's keeping it away from us, but when we focus on the techniques, if we focus on what's in the den show and what things look like and things like that, and we don't have the other side of the equation, right? We don't have the makimono, we don't have the philosophy, or our teacher didn't, and then now we don't, right? Things come out differently, right? But if we do have it, right, if we have this thing that quietly decides who rises to real world mastery, skill proficiency, those kind of things, right? And who just keeps spinning their wheels, right? And unless you understand this, you could be wasting years chasing belts, collecting techniques, never getting closer to the ability that we want, right? To actually survive when it matters most. Okay. So in this episode, I'm going to show you the self-defense pyramid of mastery, right? It's a little tool that I came up with to visually depict, right, this invisible support system or this path that could make or break your progress, right? Do you need it? No. Lots of people get by without it. Okay. Some people are extremely lucky. Some people are extremely intuitive. But I believe that the more tools that I can give my students to help them accelerate, to help them not waste the amount of time, right, that I did, or my peers did, or my teachers did. They admitted it, right? If I can live up to my goal of helping my students get from A to Z or A to Z, depending on where you live, faster than I did, then I will have done my job, right? But again, if you ever hit a plateau, if you ever became bored or didn't know what to work on next, right? Because you feel like you keep working on the same things, right? If you've ever felt like you should be further along by now, or worse yet, you have that deep gnawing concern that I mentioned earlier, right? That you're just not sure that you'll be able to use your hard-won skills, not in the dojo, not in self-defense class, not with your friends, right? But on the street, then you're going to want to stick with this until the end because it's going to be a good ride. All right. That being said, let's go ahead and officially get things started, and I'll see you on the other side.
So, the big question is this: how are self-defense and success-minded people like us, concerned citizens worried about protecting ourselves, our loved ones, and the things we care about from the monsters we know exist in the world? How do we train in a way that gives us the skills, knowledge, and understanding we need without becoming paranoid fighters or killers ourselves, and yet still allows us to be the hero protector the world needs us to be? That's the question, and this podcast will give you the answers. My name is Jeffrey Miller, and welcome to KUDEN Radio. Real training for real people in a real world.
All right. I know that just sounds like a cool intro thing, but I challenge everyone to kind of go back and listen to that again because I didn't just throw that together. Right? There's some strategically placed key phrases in that intro video, that dialogue, right? That points to exactly what we're doing here. Okay. For the folks that, in all honesty, they and I are a best fit, right, as teacher student, right? So anyway, hopefully my dog in the background is not like, I don't know, being too distracting. I'm going to try to not let her be so distracting to me, but for whatever reason, she thinks the house needs guarded from, I don't know, who knows. Could be a leaf blowing by outside. Anyway, all right. So before we jump into things, James, I have James in the wings there. Who's on?
So far, Dave, Jared, and Terrence have all checked in and said good evening.
Awesome. Good evening. Right. Well, we had some numbers go up, some numbers go down. I think sometimes people find us or see I don't know, who knows, a post or whatever, and then jump on and go, oh no, there's no dancing monkey teaching techniques in this one. This one's not for me. And well, I'm not here to force anybody to do anything. It's not the format, right? Anyway, so try to get around this little lozenge. Okay, so yeah, sporting a really old shirt. I made this a long time ago. I don't know, maybe tell the gold behind me or whatever. It kind of looks like it's, I don't know, maybe it's a little discolored. Who knows? I made this thing a long time ago for the Mikyo and meditation arm of the academy, right? So anyway, I found it digging through boxes. We still have stuff still in storage that we're still sifting through. That was brought back after the house was put back together after the fire. And found this and thought, hey, cool. Anyway, so I found this, but I didn't take the time to shave my scruff. Oh well. Hopefully James will forgive me. He's all like, clean shaven and ready to go. All right. So the obligatory, don't forget to like, share, follow, subscribe, all those wonderful things. Now, as a preemptive notification, I guess, for those of you who will be listening in my future, audio only on one or more of the podcast services, just know that, like, when these things are put together, right, they're done live, and so there's a video component, right? So you can go over to YouTube and find our channel. It's just I think it's just my name, right? That was your name again, James, right? Was it Jeffrey M. Miller, too, or something? Is that what it is?
I think so.
Anyway, James will throw it out there. So, well, I'll have to say it because if it's audio only, the chat won't help. But if you're not following us over there, that's where the audio or the video stuff. If you go to the main channel and then the live option in the menu bar up top, you'll go and you'll see all the alternating ones. It'll alternate between KUDEN and Whiteboard Wednesday. So what is it? What's the?
Well, I'm still trying. My system is so slow.
Uh-oh. Well, it's a good thing you're not like being like Max Headroom from the 80s. Do you remember that? Stuttered a whole lot. Anyway, so the reason I'm mentioning this is I don't often do this, but what I will be popping up at one point during this is I'm going to share my screen so that those who are on live visual will be able to see this self-defense pyramid, right? This wonderful professional art piece that I did. It's not bad, but I'm going to put it up so we can kind of walk through this thing. But if you want it later on, you'll be able to just go to the YouTube thing, or if you're on one of the other visual platforms like Facebook or X or something like that, should be able to go to it, and then in the description for it, there will be at least a link for the picture itself. But what I also did was I turned this into, so none of my current students have seen this yet either, but I put this on an 8.5 by 11 sheet. It's a downloadable PDF now, as a note taking kind of a worksheet, right? It's very simple, but it's there so that students can put it in their notebooks and use it as an extra learning resource. Okay, so that'll be available as well. As a matter of fact, it's up on S3 at the moment, but I've been so busy with everything I've been doing today. I'm finishing up an article. I just put together an e-course that's delivered by email that everybody will have access to here pretty soon. I was really trying to get it done before podcast time, but fell short. So I have to watch for an email or social post or whatever to grab it. It's titled 5 Deadly Mistakes that Self-Defense Students Make and How to Avoid Making Them. Right? And then it's just delivered by email, one a day, just for a couple of days, so that it can help folks not make some of these really bad mistakes. So an article that'll be up on the blog hopefully by tomorrow. The five deadly mistakes e-course, and then here we are with this, right? So I am also pulling a whole bunch of old articles out, cleaning the cyber dust off, and they'll end up on the blog here over the coming days and weeks. I have what do I have at this point? I have over 600 that have been published since I began publishing them. What was that, James? I started like in 2003, give or take, writing online. Something like that. And then I have almost 24 that I've written over the last 2 or 3 months that still haven't made their way to the blog yet. So anyway, and those are all free. So as I get them up, everybody will have access to them as well. So that being said, I didn't get everything done, so I'll try to do better. I'll try. I'm such an underachiever. Anyway, so anybody else jump in? Anybody else say hi before I rock and roll with this stuff?
Alan checked in, said good evening.
Alan, holy crap. Long time no see. Right? Maybe he'll be interested in signing up for classes at some point. What do you think? Maybe. All right. So anyway, Alan, kick back, relax. I'm sure you are and have. So let me just bring up my my notes here, and we'll go ahead and get started. So, what the hell did I title this time? Anyway, all right. So, I don't know, somewhat crazy name, right? The secret structure of mastery. What I'm really focusing on is what I'm calling the self-defense pyramid. All right. And the reason I chose that is because it identifies a stage where it is a very strong foundation, right? But again, people tend to look at foundation as like beginner stuff. And while it is true that this is the stuff we give to beginners, this is just like the way the scrolls are laid out. For anybody that understands how to look at the scrolls, the quote unquote first level scrolls, right? The Shoden no Maki, the Jodyaku no Maki. Most of you know this already. You're tired of hearing me repeat myself, but I have to because we always have new people on. That Sho or Jo kanji doesn't mean beginner. Okay. It means high level, same as in like Jodan no Kamae, high level posture. So all the most important principles and concepts are given to students first, if they can see them through all the distractions called kata or called techniques. Okay. And then it's kind of reverse engineered, right? So what I want to look at is what does a student need to learn first? And I don't mean skills and I don't mean techniques. Of course they're going to learn skills. Of course they're going to learn techniques, right? But if we put this in the context of self-defense, what needs to be learned first so that the student is ready for self-defense as quickly as possible, right? Workable skills, skill proficiency, right? And then what comes next, and then what comes next, and whatnot, right? But again, it's kind of like, looking at a forest. It's real easy to get lost in amongst the trees, okay? But the key premise here is why most people plateau in their training or miss their mark altogether, and how we can avoid having that happen to us. Okay. So that being said, right, if you were on for the pre-intro monologue, my little kind of spiel where I set things up, I mentioned that this is a bridge of sorts from last episode, right? From episode 272. But the approach is different. That last one was, it started with the premise that people kind of jump around, collecting techniques, right? Technique accumulation, right? But they tend to be random in nature. No, sensei. I learned Sanshi no Kata first, then I learned Kyorapo next, and then I learned. Okay. But what was the rhyme or reason? What was the logic other than this is the way the lineage is laid out? Other than, well, this is the way it's done, which the implication is this is the way everybody does it, right? So therefore it must be the right way. And as my mom always said, if everybody jumped off a cliff, would you jump off too? Right. So, but this isn't about that episode wasn't about random techniques. It was about a structured system, a structured curriculum for survival. Right. And so what we did was we took a walk through my curriculum as stages in ability and control of different elements, right, within an attack scenario, right? So But what we did was we looked at overall abilities that students would have at a certain level, right? As far as control goes, right? And it was definitely from a big picture perspective. Okay. So today, during this episode, what I want to do is I want to take you deeper, right, into what each level of what I call the self-defense pyramid really means, right? How the 5 Ds of self-defense strategy fit inside of it. For those of you who are my students, you know what that is. Those of you who are new, listening for the first time or whatever, don't worry about it. I will do a quick review so that you're not lost, but so that things make sense. And these things weren't made up. While this was created as a framework while I was with my first teacher needed to in his instructors guild, we did it as an expedient so students could focus on strategy and not just step-by-step techniques, right? This strategic framework it's what all the kata, all the techniques are examples of, right? And it's actually the thing that becomes the overriding skill, the intuitive skill in the highest most levels, right? Along with several other things that I'll share later, right? But right, what this is, what it does, right, and what it takes from you as you work to learn techniques and skills, right, at each level, to make sure that one, you're getting really good at certain abilities in the right order, and two, that you don't stall out. You don't assume skill proficiency too early or quit before reaching that level where we all want to be, right? Being able to whoop ass and take names and whatnot and not have to think about things as we do it. Now, with last episode, the focus was on going from learning skills, learning techniques, and then if something happened, we're going to do whatever we need to do to survive, right? That's a Shodan mindset, right? It is whatever I have to do, I'm going to do. And if I have the ability to do one of these or more of these things, right? Ichimonji no kata, ganseki, forward throw, whatever, right? Then I'll use them as they come up, right? Nidan, that's the first level where I believe that a student could use this and only this to defend themselves against a single unarmed attacker, average guy, throwing whatever the hell they want. And then the level of control goes up after that, right? So for my students, especially my Shinobi Kai people and my Ninpo Mastery and Elite people, this is your Nidan is your base litmus test, right? And I think everybody wants that anyway, right? Because anything less than that would be, well, I'm going to mix this stuff in as I need to, but ultimately I'm going to do whatever I need to do and hope that it all works out. Okay. So if that means it gets mixed with boxing or oh shit jutsu or whatever, then that's where we're going to go with it. Okay. So let me do this. You know what? I think I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Again, those of you who are on audio only, James, correct me if I'm wrong. When we post these things up onto the website as a blog post, and then the service that we use scans these things and then puts them into the podcast directories. So I don't know, for some of you guys, you won't even see this episode show up in your directory for a week or 3, depending on which directory you use. But when this gets popped up onto the directory, does our description and things that we have in the description get copied over as well? So if there's a link in there or whatever description we have, does that end up over there for them as well, where they could click on things, or are they going to have to go to onlineninjaacademy.com and then find the resource?
It can be put in the description for it. Yes.
Okay. All right.
Either
So
way.
we're gonna try to make sure that we do this so that folks have something. Now, you're not going to be able to do it while you're driving or other dangerous things, but so you can have it for reference. I'll do my best at describing it. I mean, a triangle is not the triangle. The pyramid is a pyramid, right? It's a three-dimensional thing, right? That is, if you look at it two-dimensionally, it's just looks like a triangle, but it's segmented into three sections. I could have done 5. I could have, I couldn't do less, but I could have done more. But I put it into 5, and then, or I put it into 3, and then you'll see that I've got this little ascending arrow at the top. But let me go ahead and share my screen for those of you who are on live, and then for those of you later on, you should have already had access to it and be able to bring it up. Either the graphic that we have as a PNG, it's just a picture graphic, but there, I don't know what we're going to throw in there at the moment. There could be the link to a page to you enter your email and it'll download the student worksheet for you. Not sure yet, right? Anyway, all right. So share my screen. And you know what? Now that this whole thing, I had to restart before we fired up. I apologize. Do I have it over there? I do have it. All right, there it is. Okay, so let's see. Window. Is that the right one? I don't know. Let's see what happens. Wow, look at that. That's not the right one. Let's see what happens if I bring this over. James, what pops up? What do you see?
The triangle.
Okay, so you see it?
Yes, it's just on your Canva page.
Yep.
Yeah,
that's just the expedient at the moment. I'm going to blow it up. Ta-da! Look at that.
There we go.
Check that out. Excelente. All right. So, but that's not where I want to be because I want to make sure I have my notes. Okay. So anyway, hold on to that image. All right. I'm going to shrink it here just a little bit. Okay. Just want to blow it up there so people can see it, and we'll take a walk through it. I just need to get back to my notes so that I can stay on track. All right. So what we have are 3 levels of growth. Okay. So this is inverted. Okay. So level 1, right? Foundations, that's at the bottom. Okay. So what we're really looking at, what I'm looking at my students getting is very specific things that have to do with safety and self-defense, but not necessarily like putting a whoop ass on anybody. Okay. And I know that's what everybody's, vision is and what their dreams are and whatnot. I mean, hell, they were mine. Right. But the amount of time that it takes to do that with a given system that you're learning, right, from scratch, that takes some time, right? But in all honesty, I mean, do you really need a enlightened self-defense method or a centuries old system or whatever? No, we're all hardwired to be able to do caveman jutsu, right? Now, whether or not we can bring ourselves to do it or override fear responses or whatever, that's a whole different thing. Okay. But the foundational skills that I'm looking for my students to get as quickly as possible, right, include evasion and escape techniques, right? So, strike, kick, whatever, somebody comes at them with a weapon that they can avoid, they can evade, right? The mantra at this level is, if you can't hit me, you can't hurt me. And if you can't hurt me, you can't beat me. Right. So it's the escape techniques, just some grab defenses, right? In the foundational levels, what matters to me more than anything else is not official ninjutsu kata. Not that we don't have some things like that in there. Right. What matters to me is that the student gets defenses against the most common attacks that we can prove, right? Statistically wise, right? Just at least where I live, these are the things that people should get first, right? Avoiding punches, kicks, grabs, and those kind of things, and then getting out of grabs to different parts of the body, right? Rear choke, bear hugs, one or two handed wrist grabs for control, uh, lapel grabs, one, two handed, that kind of thing, sleeve grabs, that kind of thing, because that's what they're more likely to come up against. Okay. And then if we're doing, punch or kick it, avoidance and whatnot, then, we can put a club in somebody's hand and, have them swing, and then we're avoiding those kind of things, or against a knife stab or something, right? Not that they're learning full on knife defense, but they're getting those things, right? So we've got evasion and escape techniques, right? When it comes to kamae, they're learning the kamae as positions of safety and as means to allow for de-escalation, right? Trying to convince the guy that this is not going to be easy, okay? And all this gets summed up in just a phrase, right? The student's first goal should be to get to a point where they're able to make the attacker's job more difficult, right? It's just make it difficult for them to hurt them, right? To make ourselves a hard or harder target. Okay. So I know we want to be whipping gansekis and mushadoris and all kinds of things on people. But you know what? If we don't evade, avoid, or be able to get him off of us so that we have more control than he does, and we're not in an overwhelmed state, we're able to control the distance so he can't land a jab if he wanted to, right? These like quick things. If his speed doesn't help him, if his strength doesn't help him, those kind of things. If we can't do that first, then we're never going to be able to control him to do these other things at speed, under pressure. Right? So I'll go over this here in just a bit, but the phases of the 5 Ds, we've got these, for those of you who don't know, right? We have these 5 Ds. They were just 5D words that kind of summed up the 5 phases, the 5 strategic phases within a fight or a violent encounter, right? It could be an attack, could be a fight, whatever. Okay. And while they're laid out linearly, they don't necessarily happen that way, right? They can loop back on themselves and whatnot, right? So I'll go over those in just a minute. But what I just want to cover at the moment is, as far as the 5Ds go, the focus here, the primary focus is on the discern and defend stage. And when I say defend, I don't mean what most people mean when they say defend, right? Most people, there's a whole defend thing, and it's, all they think about is whooping ass. That's not defending, right? That's fighting, that's attacking, whatever. Right? As a matter of fact, spoiler alert, in the 5 Deadly Mistakes, right? The first mistake is in confusing self-defense, survival, with conventional fighting, right? Nose to nose, toe to toe, whoever's better or luckier or whatever, gets to win. And that's not self-defense. That's not survival, right? That's like flipping a coin. Okay. Defend here means to neutralize and negate the force of the attack, right? To make what he did, punch, kick, stab, grab, whatever, moot. Make it so it doesn't do anything, right? He's off of you as quickly as he was on you, or he just keeps missing, right? Again, if you can't hit me, can't hurt me. Can't hurt me, can't beat me. Okay. So as far as the 5Ds go, the big focus is here, right? And so if we look at all of our techniques, I'll say this again in a little while, I'm sure. If we look at all of our techniques, and Hatsumi Sensei's even reinforced this over time that I've trained with him, right? If we can get the first 1, to 3 moves that encapsulate these parts, right? Out of these different techniques. If we can get these things right, then we have control. We can do whatever we want after that. Okay. But the other thing is that this is the foundation stage. Okay. We're going to talk about level 2 and we're going to talk about level 3. But if all else fails, this is our fallback. Anybody that's ever been in the military, anybody that's ever done special ops, anybody that's ever done police tactical work and things like that, right? You always have a fallback. You have a fallback position, right? If all else fails, you have a meeting point, you have a fallback position, all those kind of things, right? This is it, right? So if we jump over this and we're just distracted by techniques and all the shiny glimmer things, weapons and all that kind of stuff, and we never stop to make sure that we're fucking proficient in making sure that this guy has the hardest time possible landing shots that count, grabbing us in a way that he can hold on to us, all that kind of stuff, right? Then what the hell are we going to have when the quote unquote cool moves fail? Because in my world, these are the cool moves. Right? In my world, Kamae is everything. Right? So, but the primary goal here for students at this level is to build survivability, right? To stop being an easy target, okay? To learn the principles and concepts necessary, right? To manage initial safe distance and to maintain that as much as possible, right? To just get really, really good at evasion, at minimizing things, at understanding how to get them off of you, right? That here strength is based on, is not based on muscle mass, because if it were, then the guy with the stronger muscles or the guy with the bigger muscles or the taller person or whatever would win by default, right? Well, that's a hell of a system, right? Why bother learning anything? Right? Here, strength is based on positioning and leverage. Okay? And so that's first lessons. Okay. So if you look along the side of the left side of the, I guess it would be that side for you, right? The pyramid, right? There's a line running along there with a couple of personal character traits, right? Desire, commitment, discipline, having your big why you're doing things. Okay. They're always important, right? I'll talk about those later on, moving down through the line. But the thing to remember is that what they look like, they'll always be important, but what they look like and how they are reflected in what you're doing might change, might look a little different at different stages. Okay. For instance, like the stage of becoming a teacher, right? Kind of looping everything back and knowing what to teach students at what point, right? That's discipline, right? Being able to rein yourself in so that the class that's supposed to be for the students doesn't turn into a clown show or a show off session or trying to get students to do the really cool stuff that we're working on, but they're not ready for, right? So discipline's going to show up differently, right? We've already used discipline to learn things and to stick around and get things that we need to, but that's going to be different, right? Why am I still training? Well, the things that scare me today, I never even thought of when I first started, right? There were other boogeymen in the world then, right? But what keeps me training, what keeps me focusing, and the skill sets aren't always the same, right? Is now it's to build legacy. It's to pass things on to the next generation. It's to help people, right, to not be victims. Yeah, but Sensei, you've been a teacher for a long, long time. Yeah, I know. And I went through my egocentric phase too. Look what I can do. Uh, you know, there were times when I needed to be a teacher, right? It felt good to be a teacher, right? Then I went through phases where being a teacher is a heavy freaking burden, right? Not just because it requires a lot of work and all that. The work was never an issue, right? But making sure that I'm giving the right techniques to the right students at the right time and not giving certain techniques to certain personality types because they can't be trusted with those, or I don't know enough about them to trust them with those techniques. Yeah, that's not cool, right? Or teaching to somebody in a way that confuses them, and then they come to an understanding or a belief that they just can't do it, and so they quit, and now I can't help them at all. So these things will take on a different they'll take on a different meaning, right? So again, let me do this. I'll come back to this in a minute. I'm going to jump over some notes here and jump to the 5Ds framework, just so that everybody's clear on these things. Okay. So some of you have been around for a while. Some of you are my students. Some of you know that and you're either in or been through Mod 2. And so you can recite these because, well, they're a part of your curriculum, right? If you can't recite them in order and know what we're doing at each phase, well, then how the hell can you use them? It's kind of like with the student creed or the vows of intention or the warrior code of action, right? If you can't recite those lines, if you don't know the thing, the vow or the whatever, right? How the hell do you know you're doing it? Okay. And not in a vague way, right? Well, I already got that stuff. Okay. Really? If your friends were to get that list and see, we won't go there. That's not this episode. Okay. So just a quick refresher for some of you, for other ones that you have this down pat. I apologize. I just need to catch everybody up that might be new to this. Okay. So again, these are strategic phases. And the phases, again, we just use words that begin with a D for easy memorization, but they're much deeper than this. Okay. So the 5 phases are discern, defend, disrupt, deliver, discern. Okay. It's, truth be told, we're discerning at every phase, right? Because we're looking for certain results. But what we're really looking at is from a basic foundational kind of thing is this guy's approaching, right? And he starts to do certain things with his body, kind of set things up. Now, he could have stepped out of a doorway or a panel van and already had me in a bear hug or whatever. So this still counts, right? We're not skipping over anything, right? So discern really can be summarized as recognizing the threat or the opportunity. Okay. It's recognizing what it looks like he's about to do or what is actually happening. Okay. So the discern phase, a lot of students don't spend enough time here, right? Or they don't realize what their brain is doing, right? Our brains are really good at fortune telling and assumptive thinking, not really good at observation and monitoring, right? Which is why meditation exists, right? To train those things so that we get better at them, right? We don't really watch what's going on. We assume very quickly what's going on, right? Or we think about how great things will be, and then we have to do it or work on it, and then, oh shit, this is harder than I thought it was going to be. Those kind of things, right? There's a whole slew of little brainiac kind of shit that goes on. But what I mean here, the discern phase is a student in class who's working on, let's say, it's a defense against a hook punch, right? They don't spend enough time watching the punch come in. They don't spend enough time watching how their partner moves their body to launch this particular hook on this particular arc, where the elbow goes, how the shoulder may or may not roll over, those kind of things, right? These are all extremely important for what we're going to face when that punch or that torque comes in, which is another reason why we train slowly to begin with, because it gives us more time, left brain, to watch until we can develop that skill and the brain rewires itself to where we don't have to remember to do it. And we don't literally step by step watch it happen. We just, you can't not see it. Okay. And so that's why we have certain drills where we'll have a partner, people partner up, and the uke, right? They're going to throw a hook punch or a straight punch or an uppercut or whatever. But what they're going to do while they're with their particular training partner is they're going to throw different types of punches. They can think of one. Let's say I think I'll throw it this way, kind of an upper diagonal hook punch, or I'm going to throw kind of a downward, hook, or a flailing thing, or whatever, right? And they'll go back and forth this way, and then we'll trade out partners, because the new partner may think of an angle or a way to throw that limb, or because of their build or whatever, it's going to come in differently. Because what we want to do is we want to give the student who's practicing kamae evasion and whatnot, want to give them as many opportunities to see, right? Because they're going to make mistakes along the way, but we want to give them as many opportunities to see as many different types of punches come at them. And if we do this long enough and over time, we're going to hit a point. The student's going to hit a point, right, where we're not surprised by a type of punch or an angle. Not only because we will have done this so often against so many iterations of a punch that the chances of a real bad guy throwing one we've never seen before is practically nil, but we will have done it for so long that our brain will have rewired itself so that it actually pays attention to the fucking arc of the incoming punch. And we don't move just because an ant farted in the corner and our partner twitched. Okay? Or we're still in our head thinking about the technique we're going to do, that we're not even watching the punch come in. So we don't have a snowball chance in hell of moving to the right angle against this particular punch. Right? So same thing with grabs, right? And just because somebody put their hands on me, the angle of that hand as it grabs, and whether it's here or 2 inches over, 4 inches over, or whatever. That's why we have, just on a basic thing, everything can be split into at least 3, right? So we have grabs on the center line, which are very difficult to defend against. We have grabs center of the chest. We have grabs to the side, and then it's over on the sleeve, right? So it just moves over, right? We need to be able to feel that, because each of those has a different, or presents a different opportunity, a different opening, a different strength base that we need to feel from our attacker. And then based on their height, right? That's going to have a different feel to it, as opposed to somebody that's about my height or my height coming across, or maybe even somebody who's shorter, right? All these things matter, right? So again, they all present very specific issues, but also very specific opportunities. Okay. So this discern phase is absolutely critical for somebody in the foundational level, just as is the defend stage. The defend stage, right? The discern thing is watching and feeling. Just like I said, that guy comes out of a side street, out of a recessed doorway, panel van, whatever, already has me in a bear hug, right? At discern, I'm feeling where that pressure is, where's the restriction, where's the opening, those kind of things, right? What can I reach, or how much mobility do I have with my arms, that kind of thing, right? It's a bear hug requires a full body uke nagash, not just with the arms, right? So, but that's that part, right? And then the thing that we do next, evade the incoming punch, kick, grab, stab, whatever, okay? Or we neutralize the force of that grab, right? Because he's grabbing me to do what? To control me, to maintain things in a way where I'm off balance, I'm confused, or physically off balance, or whatever, right? And I need to neutralize that. I need to neutralize the effect of what he's doing, so his attack didn't do anything, right? Then, if I can get out, great, or whatever. But and we do teach students how to do this, but it's not Nimpo Taijutsu like. I mean, it's ish, but it's not exactly it. Okay. For instance, with the bear hug, right? And we have techniques like this in the Bujinkan, right? But off a bear hug, if I can touch his hands, right, then I'm going to use the bones of my fist, right, my knuckles, to grind in against the bones of his hand to flatten those things out, and then I can kind of open up and move. But it's to reset, to kamae, it's to escape, those kind of things, right? It's the foundational stuff, right? These two are really, really important. Okay. Then, of course, right, as a part of the defending, maybe not, right? We may have the opportunity to, or he may make a mistake, slip, whatever, and now he's off, right? So defend is, again, neutralizing the force of the attack, right? Disrupting, yes, it's breaking balance, it's breaking timing, it's breaking structure, it's breaking his thought flow, it's breaking his plan, those kind of things, his strategy, right? But disrupt is really about creating a situation where he can't continue on with his initial logic easily. Okay. At its core, that's what it is. Right. So if I have it, great. If I don't, I'm going to continue to need to do discern and defend. And I have to continue to do discern and defend until an opportunity arises where I can disrupt, where I can break his balance or his timing and cause him to make a mistake, whatever. And then in that window, when that's breaking, right, then I might have an opportunity to deliver my technique, right? I call it applying finishing tactics, whatever, right? Call it do your cool move, your ganseki, or your whatever, right? Okay. But if I disrupt things and then I don't quite catch the time, I miss my opportunity or whatever, right? He's now no longer off balance. The average human being catches their balance in a quarter to a half a second, depending on how much stumbling is going on. Okay. Quarter to half a second. Okay. And when I say a quarter, that's rather slow. The average person, it's more like 200 milliseconds. Okay. That's less than a quarter of a second. Right. So if he catches it, we're right back to discern defend again until the next opportunity pops up. Okay. But that's what they are. Deliver then is where we're actually doing our cool technique and whatnot. We have to earn every single one of these things. Okay. And then the last discern is we're still maintaining zanshin, right? This lingering awareness all the way through this. But what we're doing here is we're assessing, right, the deliver stage. Okay. Is this guy down and out? Is he running off, peeing his pants, screaming for his mommy? Is he, running to the pickup truck and grabbing a shotgun and coming back? Or is he coming back in to do anything? Or is this done, right? Or is that done, but two of his friends just got off of bar stools? Whatever. Okay. So this is not, it's laid out and it seems like it's really neat and easy, right? Tell me the 5 Ds. Yes, sensei. Discern, defend, disrupt, deliver, discern. Great. Okay. But it's not going to play out. If it plays out that way, that streamlined, that's the ideal. But life's messy. Okay. So as we look at these things, right, as we look at the levels in the, I'm going to take the picture back down here. If we look at the levels, Well, you know what? I'll keep it there. That's fine. The 5Ds are there, right? But in level 1, what we really have is a critical need to be really, really, really freaking good at discern and defend, those first two phases. Okay, because that's what's going to make us hard to hurt. Right? Can't hit us or can't hold on to us. Then he can't hurt us. If he can't hurt us, he can't beat us. Okay. But the other ones are there if we have the opportunity and we're not foolish, right? We don't jump on things because we have an imperative need or because we're afraid of losing. So we just do something or whatever. Okay. So the idea here, right? And there's a little bit of bleed over to level 2 because we do give techniques, right? But the most important pieces of any technique that a student gets, and any time that students get new techniques, which is why as we move up through the modules between white belt and black belt in our curriculum, right? Every level has 3 belts, right? And the first level, they all have certain colors, right? But see, mine are different than everybody else's. Not everybody's, but a lot. If they didn't like come from the Hayes camp or whatever, mine are all based on the colors of the elements on the mandala because those colors represent the life skills, right? Not something martial like or just arbitrary or whatever, because that creates that balance in there, right? But each one, the first belt level, with the exception of module 1, because everybody starts in a white belt, they all share the same color, but each one has a beginner, intermediate, and advanced stage. The beginner phase has a white stripe running through it. Okay. Then the next one is a solid, same color, but solid. And then the last one, when they're in the review stage and they're learning some variations and whatnot and getting ready to graduate out to the next level, then that one has a black stripe running from end to end. Right. So everybody gets it. It makes sense. Right. So, but everybody in whatever module, when they get into that first belt or they're in there for the first time, right? It's kind of a resetting where they're just going to very quickly go through foundational stuff to make sure that they're really good at using those newcomi for discern defend, right? And they're learning the new distance and the maintaining of control and from that perspective. And then they can begin adding new skills, right? All the while they're just refining stuff that they learned anyway, right? So all skills are always at a different level, right? So, but I think it's this missing, right? Everybody gets so focused on skills, right? Dive rolls and leaping and sword draws and kata names and right. They're all flashy and they're all. I've been there, right? I get it, right? But this is why many people get blindsided, right? They're taught only techniques without the awareness and distance control skills that those techniques are reflections of, that they're examples of, right? These skills that come first, right? So there can be a huge disconnect and we don't even know it, right? Where we know all of these techniques, but how good are we at the first couple of pieces in that technique? That if somebody came at us, how good are we at kama evasion, uke nagash, escaping that, or breaking that grip under pressure, sweaty palms, right? Possibility of anything happening afterwards. How good are we at that part? Because ultimately, that's the self-defense part. The rest of the technique is whoop ass. That's not the survival part. That's the break another human being part. At its core, self-defense is the first moves where you are, at the very least, getting to the disrupt stage where he's falling down or trying to catch his balance or whatever, and that gives you the opportunity to haul ass or trip him or do something. It doesn't have to be refined taijutsu, right? That's why Hatsumi Sensei, again, always said, get the first 1 or 2 moves, as in these phases, right? Get him to this stage. Do whatever you want. Okay. How good are we at that? Because that's the foundation, right? It's not the beginner stuff. What is the beginner stuff? But it's what allows a beginner to be self-defense proficient as quickly as possible. Okay? It's not the same as technique accumulation. It's not the same as learning so I can get my next belt. It's not the same as, it's not the same. Okay. So, again, some of you guys are brand new at this. Some of you have been training for a long time and may not know whether there's gaps in your training, whatever, right? But if you, whoever you are, because I don't know who's on the other end here specifically, because I'm talking to an unknown group. I know some of the people that are on because you said hi, but you're watching one teacher, right? But if you are realizing your training may have skipped these foundational pieces, not that you didn't learn them as a part of techniques, but the foundational pieces of shit, I'm supposed to get really good at being hard to grab, hard to hit, whatever, not really good at whooping his ass for throwing a punch, but I didn't really pay attention to the nuance of the punch. So, or my timing, right? And so based on my timing, because I'm so focused on executing the technique, that I don't really realize that in real time, this guy's not executing a textbook technique, right? He would just follow me and punch me where I end up, right? Or he might slightly miss and then just re-grab again because I didn't move to the right angle and I'm not at it, okay? So, but if maybe you feel like you missed this, right? That's exactly why I created my Foundations of Ninja Self-Defense Mastery program. Okay. It's where every new student should start because it's about making sure you've got the base that keeps you from even needing advanced techniques in the first place. Well, if we don't need those, then why do we have them? Because life's messy, right? That's Takamatsu Sensei, right? And one of the biggest quotes that I have from him is he said that the Kyonapo is all you need. Okay. But there's a lot that go into the Kyonapo because those techniques are all examples of the ideal, right? But is he talking about the technique, the form of the technique, or is he talking about what gives life to that form? Okay. Not mutually inclusive. Anyway, right? I don't want to make this a sales pitch, so I don't even want people to think that. I'm just making a reference. Okay. So, James, any questions? I'm going to stop sharing for just a minute here. Any questions, comments, complaints? Don't tell me about the complaints. I'm sensitive. So, anyway, anything from anybody? Questions, comments, complaints?
No questions. Just a few more people checked in.
Awesome.
Glenn Barassa, Jimmy dropped his comment, and Trinity said hello.
Awesome. Very cool. Just a heads up. Say it again at the end. Trinity is my guest next week. No, not just because she's my daughter. She's doing cool stuff. I haven't done one of these in a long time, and I really need to get back on track with them. What was it? I don't know, dozen episodes or whatever ago, maybe 24. I started a series where I was interviewing students that were actually putting this stuff to use. I think the very first one was Lee Davis, wasn't it? Is that Sensei Davis out of Georgia? Yeah.
Right.
So had a couple of folks on discussing, value and mistakes and whatever they're doing and stuff like that, right? So Trinity's really been putting this stuff to use a lot, right? And so we've been chatting back and forth about what she's doing and how she's applying things on more of a psychological level using the Sanmitsu and things like that. So she and I are going to kind of partner up and I'm going to interview my daughter next week so she can share some of these things that she's working on. Really cool stuff. So yeah, cool. All right. So anything else?
No, nothing right now.
No, nothing right now. All right. So let's see. Should we bring you think that was helpful, James, to have that image up? I mean, it's not going to matter to most people that aren't listening. They're going to hear me just talking, but I think that was helpful. Was it helpful for you? My shoddy artwork.
Yeah, I think it was. It's good.
Yeah, I think it was. All right. Well, fair enough. All right. Let me put it back over there. See if I can find it again. Where'd I put it? Why is it not? People would think that I'm like more technologically savvy, but anyway. Ta-da! There's that weird thing again. How's that? Is that good? It pop back up again?
Yes, sir.
You are the man. Thanks. I don't care what Aaron says. All right. So don't say it. Don't say it. She might hear this at some point. All right. So let's talk about level 2. All right. So again, this has nothing to do with rank. 0. This has to do with skill proficiency. Okay. And our ability to control situations. Okay. So if level 1 is all about being hard to hit, hard to hold on to, really good with those first two strategic phases, right? Discern, right? I'm freaking paying attention to what's actually going on, not what I assume is going on, not what I want to be going on, not what I hope is going on, right? Actually what's going on. And I'm neutralizing whatever it is he's doing, right? I'm making it, as the Germans would say, macht's nix, matter not. Okay. I'm just getting really, really good. And even if he does hit me, even if he does grab me or whatever, he can't hold on to me for very long. Or if he is holding on to me, he's off balance and he's left himself open and I can do things. Or if he does hit me or whatever, I'm moving with it and moving to indirect lines and whatnot. So at best, it's a grazing shot or it's minimally, painful or whatever, which probably just piss most of us off more. Okay. But is that all there is? No. At its core, that's basic self-defense, right? But how many different attacker types are there? Okay. Often with my inner circle group, we'll pull up the mandala and we will go around and look at 5 different attacker types and what they tend to lean into, right? But they can be broken down into subsets, 5 different grappler types. When somebody grabs you or tries to do things with you where they're going hands-on, right? We can look at the four base elements, earth, water, fire, and wind, as the reason why, right? Why do they do that? How are they doing it, right? If they're a puncher, okay, what type of puncher, right? Is this somebody who's going to get a hold of me and just want to one and done? Or are they the haul off kind of guy? Are they the quick jabber kind of guy? Are they the, moving around and trying to be, all tricky and whatnot? Or the flailer, right? Those kind of things, right? We break these things down because they're all different. Okay. Attacker types, right? Is he coming in hot and heavy, trying to, overwhelm me? Is he picking his shots and he's very calculated kind of thing? Is he just very, very chaotic, right? Trying to confuse me so he can get a shot in. Uh, they're all different, right? And so we spend a module with each of these. And of course, there's extra techniques, right? In certain ones, there's kansetsu waza as far as gyakute, right? Wrist reversals and jams and shears and locks and those kind of things, right? In another one, it's throws. And another one, it's other types of joint locks and manipulations, right? Shoulder attacks and whatnot. Okay. There's variations on strikes. There's different fists. There's variations on kicking. All of these things have different things, but what are we looking at, right? So level 2 is tactical integration. Right? The skills really revolve around a deeper dive into those principles, right? The why of the tactics. Not just these techniques have you stepping back in Ichimonji and then you come in and attack him. Not these move into Kosei or Jumonji or whatever, but what are we doing? What is the tactical maneuvering? What is the strategy, right? What are we doing to control the environment, him, the bubble between us, that kind of thing, right? We're learning these different techniques and things, but we're learning to choose techniques. We're learning when they work best, how to adapt them to different situations and scenarios, right? We're learning to choose techniques based on attacker, based on the situation, based on the environment, based on legal or company policy considerations, use of force, those kind of things, right? Self-defense doctrine, okay? We're diving into and seeing how the kata demonstrate the 5 Ds in ideal form, which moves in a kata, right? Well, see, most people miss the fact that discern came before he threw the punch, and it continues all the way up till the moment you start to evade, or the moment where he grabs and I shift to neutralize that force so I'm not shoved or pulled or otherwise knocked off balance, right? Which ones, right, are in the defend stage? Which ones are in the disrupt stage? Which ones are in the deliver stage? Which moves encapsulate more than one, right? Defend does cause disruption. Disruption is an attack, and it allows for another one and another one. Okay. So we're also in these different phases learning how to use the 5 Ds to fix problems when we're having a problem with a technique or when reality doesn't go to the ideal, right? And so we know instinctively which phase we're in, right? So we're not trying to do dumb shit because, again, fear, imperative need, cockiness, whatever, okay? But a big part of those modules before Shodan is in using the 5 Ds as a diagnostic tool, right? If the technique is breaking down, before I call the teacher over and ask him why isn't this working? Okay. Because I could be doing this step by step perfectly right. But with the flow, with the timing, whatever, right? Am I trying to do something? Kind of like somebody they've learned the osotonage, right? This great outer reaping throw, right? Some people just call it a rear hip throw. So we're in a commute situation, right? And we push pull as the weight shifts to the rear leg, and then we step through, and then as we settle or slightly turn again, dump him onto his ass, his head, whatever, right? Okay. But I push pull and I step, and now I'm off balance. Or I push pull and I step, but he just steps and neutralizes that. Sensei. Okay. Well, if I didn't learn that push pull, right, is an attempt to what? Disrupt. Okay. I should have been discerning and defending as my partner came in to catch with Kumuch. Now, we're never going to see that when we do soft training. But if my partner comes in to grab me, right, I need to sense that intention. And as he starts putting his hands on me, actually, even before he does, I drift with it. So when he tries to do that to me, he has nothing, right? And now, right, as he starts putting his hands on me, I can already do that shift, right? So if I'm not paying attention, but sensei, I did the push pull, right? But he's not off balance. Okay, so why the hell are you trying to step behind him to throw him if he's not off balance yet? What is the stepping behind to throw? Oh, that's deliver. Yeah. All right. Is he disrupted? Is he off balance? Well, no. Well, then why the hell are you trying to do deliver? You didn't earn it. Okay. So if what students are not discerning, they're not paying attention to is when I push pull, right? Wrong angle, wrong time, right? Partner is already trying to defend or resist at a level above where I'm working. Because if I knew that, I wouldn't have done that, or I would have done something to, here's something for the upper intermediate people. If you've got somebody that's resisting what you're doing, let's say we're doing an osoto nage, okay? And he knows that I'm going to be doing it, so he shifts in ever so slightly, but it makes it really, really difficult for me to do that thing to break his balance to the back because he's shifted in to neutralize that ability. Okay. So the microsecond before you do the push pull, right? Push his shoulder back, pull his sleeve, that kind of thing, right? What you do is you either relax your grip a little bit so he falls forward because he's applying resistance and he's pressing against you. So if you feel that, discern, right? Then what I do is I relax a little bit. And then as his body collapses into that, guess what he's going to do? He's going to fire his posterior muscles. He's going to fire his back muscles. And that already gets him moving in that direction. So you relax and then go because you're going to catch him catching himself. And now you can do it. Or before you try to move him backwards, you do a slight pull toward you and his body will respond to resist what you're doing. And he can't resist what you're doing without giving you what you want. That's Nidan to Sandan stuff. But hey, sooner you can put it to use, better off you're going to be, right? So, but again, can we fix the problems? Okay. So the training here really is wrapped around the 5Ds, right? All 5. Discern, defend, disrupt, deliver. Discern. How well do you know them? Do you have to remember them, right? Are they becoming just I know where I am. Okay. Now I don't expect that people are like awesome at them, even at Shodan, right? But working from Shodan and Nidan, often it's the dynamics because people are still thinking about the 5Ds step by step. Okay. So between Shodan and Nidan, what we're working on is timing, distancing, angling, and flow, 4 of the primary core principles and concepts in this art. And that's that we need to have those, right, to be able to neutralize and control somebody throwing whatever the hell they want. Okay. But in level 1, where the goal was being harder to hit, right? Being a harder target. Okay. The primary goal in level 2 with our skills is the ability to adapt to chaos, knowing exactly where you are in the phases, strategically where you are, right? So you always know what to do next. Okay. If you tried something and it didn't work, well, then he owns the stability dynamic, right? I've got to wait until he does something, or I have to create something so that his response to that gives me what I need. Okay. So, but all the way up to Nidan, that's just, letting him lead the dance. Okay. So the primary goal is adaptability in chaos, right? And again, right, discipline's going to show up a certain way, right? Because we're going to, through these, right? Yes, we're learning new techniques, and yes, we're learning new skills and whatnot, but discipline and commitment and our big why are really going to be the things that carry us through here, because there's going to be a lot of frustration. There's going to be a lot of challenge, right? I see the teacher doing it, right? I've been doing martial arts for a long time, right? And then shit, why can't I do this? Right? Frustration, right? Confusion, right? Every once in a while, those late night thoughts. Maybe this isn't for me. Maybe I should just quit. And maybe we don't have those thoughts. You know, there's a really interesting thing that the brain does. I mentioned this earlier. Brain does little things to us, right? Ego will distract us from something that we find challenging by giving us a list of things that have to be done, right? I got to get those things done, right? But did you have to get them done during the time frame that class was going on, or that you should be practicing or whatever? Probably not. Maybe, but probably not. Okay. So we have to be really, really, really careful. Okay. Again, folks that get into the program and stuff, right? Whether they start with the foundations course or whatever, our reiteration of things, I ended up splitting these things out. So, but it just kind of, this helps to expose gaps. Okay. And the gaps usually isn't in the number of techniques that people have. It's assessment skills. It's in the discernment, prioritization, defending, right? Knowing, and having those things in muscle memory, in storehouse conscious, in the unconscious, subconscious. We've reprogrammed response mechanisms. Okay. So again, I'll talk about level 3 here in a minute, but actually, let's just see if there's any questions. Any questions or comments pop up about any of that, James?
No, I don't see anything.
Okay. Yeah, we'll see. I'll see what I have in my notes. I'm pretty sure that I have a note in here about certain folks that did train for quite a while before they even came to me. But again, all these things are kind of jumbled in my head at the moment. Did I put that in the 5 deadly mistakes e-course? Did I put that in the article? Anyway, we'll see what happens here. Okay. So, all right, let's look at level 3, right? Level 3 is about strategic mindset. Okay. And there's a lot going on here, right? A lot of people try to force this level because ego needs to be the guy or the girl, right? And if we're not careful, it will try to jump over necessary training, necessary skill sets and whatnot, because they're intangible. They're not easy to see, right? It's easy to see if I complete a kata all the way through, if I don't miss any of the spots, right? I don't lose my balance or whatever. That's easy, right? But to know whether I'm discerning so that I can move at the best time, my uke nagash or my uke uchi lands at the best time, right? Not as easy, right? But again, all of these levels, right? It's about transcendence. Okay. See, these things match up with the shuhari as well, just not fixed. Okay. They're connected, but it's not exact. Okay. So at level 3, the skills that I'm looking for from my students, things like adaptability and self-expression in real situations. What that means is, right, the adaptability, they're letting the situation dictate what tools, what skills, what kamae, whatever. They're not operating on preferences. They're not operating on favorites. Okay. They're not having to remember things, right? They just do as you choose. Whatever you want. Okay, perfect. Yeah, yeah, good. Me too. Okay. But self-expression is they're not making shit up. They're not doing it their way by, uh, well, since they taught it this way, right? Kind of like taking the traditional Taekwondo stuff or whatever, and then we make an American Taekwondo by, changing the posture so it looks more boxing like, right? That's not what I mean. Right? What I mean is that adaptability and whatnot, they've taken upon, they've integrated it into themselves. And so it's going to come out based on their nature, based on their emotional state in the moment, based on their size and build ratio compared to the person who's coming at them or the people that are coming at them, right? Those kind of things. It's going to match their life and their lifestyle. Okay. So it's not fixed. It's not ritual or stylized. Okay. This is a level marked by leaving technique behind, right? So we are free from the mechanical, from the step-by-step, from the official, so that we can enter the realms of the intuitive, right? Just like living, that becomes no different than living our lives every day. Okay. So, and if it's still up on your screen, and if again, if you're in the audio only realm, that's fine. Just find one of the links, and if you can't find anything for whatever reason, you can always reach out to us, right? Send something to either Warrior C, WARRIOR, and the letter C, or info, that's simple, at warrior-concepts-online.com, and go, hey, be nice, but going through this thing and I can't find the self-defense pyramid graphic or the worksheet or whatever. We'll send you a link, right? It only costs you $5,000. No problem. No, I'm kidding. Right? We'll send you the link. Okay. But as we're continuing up, right? And this actually began earlier on and it's been developing all along. But what we have here is a development of and a furthering of the development of the four base mindsets. Right? You can find these in the Seishin Teki Kyoyo book as well. But we're looking at Mushin, right? Technically, it translates to no mind. But what this means is I can do all this stuff without thinking about it, without thinking step by step, without having to try to remember it, without, right? I'm not focusing on me. I'm focusing on letting him lead the dance until, well, you just proved that you're a bad leader. And now I need to take you down. Okay. Zanshin, which means remaining mind, lingering mind, awareness, that kind of thing. But Zanshin is paying attention without having to fucking remind ourselves that we have to pay attention, and knowing what or where to direct that attention, right? And how to hold it. For those of you in Mikyo, part of the Noble Eightfold Path, right? We have right meditation or right awareness and right concentration. So one of these, right, and they sound like they're the same to a lot of people. I know they did to me in the beginning, but one of them is knowing what to pay attention to. And the other one is the ability to sustain that awareness, to hold it on that thing no matter what, right? You're not going to be distracted by some shiny thing or his little tricky move or whatever, okay? And you don't have to remember. You don't have to remember as you take this guy down, but he fell away from you, so you can't lock him up or restrain him or whatever, to back away and freaking kamae. You don't have to remember that if you forget what to do for a microsecond in a technique, or you hit him and he doesn't move, you don't have to remember to move to kamae or to roll to kamae or whatever. You don't have to remember to bail, to reset the fight to zero. As you're moving around before he throws something, right? You don't have to remember to move so you get a panoramic view of things behind you so you know where other people are in the room or in that environment, just in case one of these jackwagons decides or is a Confederate to him and he doesn't clock you in the back of your freaking skull before you can do your cool move, right? We don't have to remember to do the discerning stage at the end of the 5 Ds. Okay, that's Zanshin. Okay. Fudoshin, immovable mind, is the thing. And again, all these things are interrelated. They're all connected, but we can pull each one and hone it. So Fudoshin, Fudo means immovable, right? Shin, mind or heart, right? I'm not stirred by or can control fear responses and things like that, right? I'm not easily distracted. He's not able to break my spirit or my commitment, right? Those kind of things, right? It's a steady. This will happen, right? Okay? We can practice these kind of things, all of these, every day. Okay? And then Heijoshin, right? Heijoshin, everyday mind, common mind, those kind of things. Heijoshin is a really interesting mindset. Heijoshin is the level where the extraordinary, the thing that was special, the training, the techniques, whatever, right, become no different than anything else that we do. Which is, again, this is a huge trap for a lot of people because they confuse that with boredom, or they confuse it with I'm not really learning anything, or it's just kind of something. And what they'll do is they'll jump ship and go start in a brand new martial art because like everything's cool, it's all different, it's all new. They miss the fact that this is it, right? This is somebody can come at you and you're running these skills and whatnot, not because it's something you do, because it's so much a part of who you are that you can't not do it, right? Just, you climb out of the shower, you grab a freaking towel, you start drying off while you're thinking about what that jackwagon said to you yesterday, or what you need to do the rest of the day, or whatever, right? You just freaking dry off, right? You hop in your car and you drive to the store because you need to pick up that thing. You don't barely even think about operating the car. That's Heijoshin, right? I was taught as a white belt by Hatsumi Sensei, by Hei Sensei. This is the target, right? To where this is all being handled subconscious, unconscious, with little glimmers of insight or necessity from the left brain. But the primary goal here is to live and operate as an expert, as a master, whatever term you want to use, right? A protector whose training and mindset are inseparable from who they are. Right? So again, everything's going to, those personal growth factors, right? The desire, the commitment, the discipline, right? They all keep evolving, right? The big why changes, all that kind of stuff, because you can handle more and more things, right? My big why that I keep training, the reason I keep training and stuff, and I keep showing up, part of discipline, part of the big why and stuff, is because my students depend on that, right? They need me. And if I don't do it, then I have to trust them to somebody else that I wouldn't send. Well, I might send my worst enemy to them, but then who are they going to get the training from, right? So, and this isn't put me in a pedestal. It's not about that, right? But my students need this stuff, so they expect me to, right? But also my big why is I need to make sure that my skills don't rust because my family depends on me, right? And my wife and I travel quite a bit, and there are, as much as she makes fun of it sometimes or whatever, my wife depends on my cop eyes, my vigilance, right? Certain things happening and me tuning in, right? Because her safety depends on it, right? So this is the level where your motivation shifts from I want to survive, which is pretty much a level 1 thing, right? Level 1 is what's most people's motivation, right? I don't want to have my ass handed to me. There's danger in the world. I want to be able to protect myself. I want to be able to protect my loved ones. I mean, summing it up, it's I want to survive, right? level 2 is I want to get this stuff handled, and I want to know enough to handle whatever comes at me. And I recognize that, like, while a punch is a punch and a kick is a kick and whatever, these things can look a whole bunch of different ways. And I could be in a different state of mind. I could be surprised, or I could be tuned in, or I could be in different environments, those kind of things. So I need to work through those things so that I've got an answer for, I've got a tool for the variance, right? But at this level, right, I can protect, I can lead, and I can inspire others. So wherever you are, right, just beginning, already years into training, right, there is a next step to make sure that you're not leaving yourself exposed, right? If you're just starting out, right, you're gonna like check out the Foundations of Ninja Self-Defense Mastery program, right? If you've been training for a while and want to fill in the gaps or raise the game, right, to a higher level, or make sure that you know, you don't have any gaps, right? Then Nimpo Master class, right? That's our kind of our Nimpo Light program, right? Nimpo Mastery, Nimpo, or I'm sorry, yeah, and then the Elite level, right? Tracks, those kind of things are built for those folks, right? And then we'll end up putting links in the description so that you can check them out if you're interested, right? But either way, right? The reason for all this, right? The because, right? I promise, right? After decades of watching Hatsumi Sensei, the master of teachers, right? Some are now Soke, right? They did not get where they are by just doing more techniques. Okay? As a matter of fact, more often than not, if they're teaching the techniques, they do the same thing I do, or I do the same thing they do, right? They go to the notebook and open it up and read off the step by step because they've already transcended past that. And so they need to pull it back out, put themselves in a mindset for the class that they're teaching, and transmit the lesson that way. Okay. Because they're so far beyond that if they held on to the techniques, right, it would diminish their overall ability. Okay. Bunch of years ago, well, maybe not a bunch. It's probably about somewhere between 3 and 5 at this point. I don't know. I'm sure one of my guys will correct me. I had my inner circle guys, my long distance guys, do a self-assessment, right? Especially if they've been through, multiple modules, they had access to it up to Shodan, Nidan in the curriculum and whatnot, and do a self-assessment, right? Because they could work on anything, right? Where are you? Where are you in your training? Based on the curriculum. And one of my guys who had attained his Nidan from other instructors, right, in this art, other instructors, live before signing on with me long distance, right? Again, Nidan, right? The response that came back, everybody sent me a little response, So the response I got back was, well, technically rank-wise, Nidan, but based on the curriculum and having to fill in some gaps, somewhere in Mod 3. Okay, given that there are 5 modules to get to Shodan, and then there's a year or two based on the dynamics, right, to get to Nidan, right? Of course, the same student that I'm thinking of right now is never tested for anything rank-wise because the skill was more important than the rank. Okay? And others, right, that are even, I don't know if they did that assessment or not, right? But they've sent different types of assessments, right, regarding their skill proficiency based on things that they've gotten, right? And after they've, I'll call it siloed or stacked their skills together, in a really bad situation, like real world, really bad situation. Right. So again, if you like what you're doing and where you are, then just keep doing that thing. Right? It's not a problem for me. Right? If you want to make sure that you're training in a way that provides focus and gets you to certain results and benchmarks faster, then I'm here if you want to talk. Okay? But either way, okay. So again, what have we done? We talked about the 3 tiers in the self-defense pyramid. I reviewed the 5 Ds. Yeah. Discern, defend, disrupt, deliver, discern. Right. We talked about those personal keys, right? For every level: desire, commitment, discipline, and the big why, and how they will change. They change as you grow. Okay. They're not necessarily attached to any one level. They're always going to be there. Okay. That desire and commitment to start would certainly be a level 1 kind of thing, but the discipline to show up for class or to practice consistently, those kind of things, right? The discipline to stay on course. Okay. Having a big why is really what makes you unstoppable, right? For mine, it was, who depends on me for safety, and who am I letting down every day that I don't do what I need to do, every day that I haven't attained these skills, and what will I be faced with? What will I have to think about, or what kind of guilt or whatever, should something happen to them because I dicked around? Okay. But at different levels, level 2, level 3, or whatever, they're going to change because, you develop these habits through level 1, and then things shift, right? The desire, right? What am I desiring to learn? What am I desiring to get better at? Whatnot, right? Things change. Yeah. So I just heard a really weird sound. Hopefully things didn't disconnect for me. Maybe that was James. Let's see.
You're good.
Oh, I'm good. All right. Thank you very much. All right. Did I stop sharing? Oh, I did. Excellent. Okay. So, I guess the big question at this point is, right, if we're going to kind of wind things down, is where are you? Not where you are. Where are you in the world at the moment? That's not what I'm asking, right? Where the hell is mine? There it is. Okay. Which level? Which level with which techniques? Okay. What kind of things, what kind of drills could you be doing? You may not even know, right? One of the hardest parts of mastery is uncovering those things we don't even know, right? But the last place we want gaps to pop up is when Joe Cool Jackwagon is trying to beat, break, or kill us, or somebody we love, and then we don't have a tool. So what, where are you? What are you working on? What do you need to be working on? And before the answer is, well, this one technique or these techniques that I know I'm not good at yet or whatever. Okay, well, what about the techniques that you are really good at? Okay. Belief is one thing. Knowing is something else. Can you trust your life? Can people you love trust their lives to your proficiency with those techniques? Under pressure, sweaty palms, muscles quivering, breath different, right? And then, if nothing else, think about those mindsets: Mushin, Fudoshin, right? Zanshin, Heizoshin. Anyway, and before we look at the training, because training in the dojo tends to be rather controlled, right? What's our mind do when we're hit with pressure just in everyday things in life. And what makes us think that we're going to operate any differently when the consequences of screwing this up is not being angry or having somebody not talk to you for a week, but it's, well, no worries, because other people will be making the decisions. Okay. So anyway, before I wrap things up with a couple of announcements and whatnot, James, any questions, comments, anything from anybody?
No, I haven't seen anything come in.
Well, they're either asleep or I didn't do such a great job this time. All right. So that being said, right, don't forget, if you're in the upstate New York area or want to be, September 20th, that's a Saturday, I will be at Lemoyne College in Syracuse, New York, for a single day seminar. You can find the information over on online ninjaacademy.com/events. You can even register and enroll that way. There's a discount if you do it through the website. Price is different if you show up at the door. What else? Fall camp is October 17th, 18th, and 19th. That's going to be cool. We're going to be focusing on the core principles that if you can get a handle on these things, then you will have a handle on 70% of this art, 80% of this art. Okay. Right now, what I have planned, because I can only do so much, because I just had this thing about doing breakout sessions. And so that gives me a little bit of a break, allows my folks to shine and present things that they're working on and whatnot, based on the, what do I have? 4, 8, 9, 10, 12 or 13 out of the 18 hours of training during the weekend. Minimum 6 of these core principles, but I'll probably share a couple more. There's, give or take, 9 or 10 that if you get a handle on, no matter what the technique looks like, you'll have your shit together majorly. Okay. That's fall camp. That's over also on the events page at onlineninjaacademy.com. Okay. Next week, next episode, right? Going to be interviewing Trinity, and let's see, I took some notes here, so I'm just going to read this thing off because we were just chatting back and forth, and she goes, "Sounds good to me." So let's see. Let me find my little note. Trend. There we go. So, well, I do have a standard questionnaire that I take students through, that I'll probably start off with everything. Right, James. It just kind of diverges and becomes more personal, back and forth. And again, she and I have a different dynamic, so we'll try to keep the banter to a minimum and try to stay on topic, right? The focus will center around what she's learned, right, and how her focus is different from before, right? She started when she was 2.5 years old. She grew up in the dojo, right? But how that leads into how she's using this stuff in her life, right? So I'm gonna be asking her questions about, like, the podcast that she was on that was for government level intelligence leaders. She just got out of college, and where she sees herself taking the training, right, or aspects of it going forward. Okay. And then we're probably going to spend quite a bit of time on how she's really kind of grabbed onto or gravitated to the Ninja Sanmitsu, right? The triple secrets for success, and how she's coupling that with her psychology background, right? Different aspects of it, to really create something unique in her chosen field, right? And she's we'll probably also talk about her exploration and use of Manaka Sensei's book. What is that? Kokusei Seishin? Is that right? on the Mushin, Fudoshin, and Heijoshin. That book is actually his university thesis. He wanted to dive into this stuff so much, but instead of leaving it in the realm of subjective, he's a martial artist talking to the martial artists and whatnot. He went to the university so he could use their resources to run actual studies. And like Trin grabbed a hold of this book and like, so I think she's planning on going back for her doctorate so that she can use university resources to duplicate the studies to see what she comes up with. I think that'll be cool. Okay. So anyway, that's next week. So let's wrap this up. Anything come in, James, last minute? Oh, I almost forgot. Fall camp. I've got the things for two of the breakout sessions. Trinity's doing something along the lines of what we'll be discussing next week. The psychological side of things. And then Christina Major, she's one of my need-ons. She will be covering the Tessin, the fan, both just across a whole wide range of historical to combat to signaling, all kinds of stuff. So that'll be really, really cool as well. So anyway, all right. Sorry, James, I wanted to get that out before I forgot again.
No, I still don't say anything.
All right. Well, either I broke brains or numbers are down, so people are probably hanging up. So anyway, all right. Did I forget anything? Anything that you can think of?
I don't think so.
All right. Well, in that case, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. Another one in the can. I will talk to everybody again next time on KUDEN.
Get more of KUDEN Radio. Subscribe through your favorite podcasting site or join our clan of serious modern warriors at onlineninjaacademy.com.